Hey, Luke and Maddie here with Average Optimized, and this week's Three Things show is for the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. And this book was chock full of achievement-centric concepts, all seamlessly tied together and explained under the arch of grit, while throughout stopping at pit stops for entertaining stories and anecdotes. Quick intro. This book is 352 pages hardcover and 9 hours and 22 minutes audible. This book is described on Amazon as follows. Among Grit's most valuable insights, why any effort you make ultimately counts twice towards your goal, how grit can be learned regardless of IQ and circumstances, how lifelong interest is triggered, how much of optimal practice is suffering and how much ecstasy, which is better for your child, a warm embrace or high standards, and the magic of the hard thing rule, winningly personal, insightful, and even life-changing, Grit is a book about what goes through your head when you fall down and how that, not talent or luck, makes all the difference. So, what are 3 things we can use from this book? Number 1, effort. As much as talent counts, effort counts twice. Did you ever notice we like to endorse the mystery of talent rather than the mundane of practice? We like to see professionals and think, wow, that person is talented. We assume, for the most part, that that person was born with a skill set that goes hand in hand with their profession. We don't naturally entertain the idea that they earned their performance. But if you think about it, it makes sense for us to do that because we are wired for self-protection. The implications of effort being the most important component that got them to where they were would mean that we have a lot of work to do if we want to strive for accomplishment. Inversely, if we entertain the idea that we weren't born with that skill set and they were successful because they were, it gives us the benefit of the doubt. We're off the hook. Angela Duckworth has put together a theory, 2 equations, after over a decade of work in this field. The first one is talent times effort equals skill. The second one being times effort equals achievement. So talent is how quickly your skills improve when you invest effort, and achievement is when you take your acquired skills and use them. Without effort, talent is just potential, and effort counts twice. Effort builds skill, and at the very same time, effort makes skills productive. And Maddie gets all riled up for this part because she loves it. If the top dogs in the professions, If the top dogs in the professions only had talent, they wouldn't have gotten anywhere. They needed effort to both execute in their profession and to ultimately grow their capability. Number 2, grit grows. As people mature, their grit goes up. Grit is not fixed, it is plastic. As we learn and our circumstances change, we change. And with most of us, we become more conscientious, caring, and calm with life experience. We figure out our life philosophy, we learn to dust ourselves off after rejection and disappointment, and we learn to tell the difference between low-level goals that should be abandoned quickly and high-level goals that demand more tenacity. Grit is not fixed. Don't think to yourself that you don't usually stick to your diet or that you don't put in the sustained effort necessary for real achievement. Instead, realize that your effort and grit comes down to a few factors that you are in control of, and that your grit score is hot, malleable, and in your hands. If you want achievement as part of your life, in whatever arena, it requires grit. And grit is something that comes with experience. So I say, if it's that easy, skip the experience and put together that the effort and the grit is worth it in the end, and invest in your achievement now. Number 3, interest. Being interested in what you do is pretty much a prerequisite for working doggedly on something, pursuing greatness by exploring the depths and the nuance and repeatedly revisiting the elements for more insight. And that's what people want. Of course you want to follow your passion and your interest, but it just hasn't come to you yet. Well, according to most of the top performers in their fields, who Angela Duckworth calls grit paragons, interest doesn't just appear. She loves this part. They said they spent years exploring several different interests, and that the interest that they did end up with required a depth of understanding first before they really clicked. The eventual winning interest wasn't recognized as so on the first encounter. What this is saying here is, generally, you ultimately cultivate an interest. Sometimes, some things can only become contenders after you stick with them through the initial stages and into the nuance and depth. Our passions and interests are only apparent to us after experiences, not introspection. So the way to find out what interests us is to go out and experience, but also stick with our choices long enough to discover their potentially hidden assets. She makes it clear that it's naive to think we can love every minute, but being interested in what we do doesn't ensure happiness, but it sure helps the odds. So, to recap, talent is only potential. Effort counts twice, and without effort, there is no achievement. Grit is malleable and is generally increasing as we become smarter, more experienced, and more founded. Interest is intrinsic, but it takes experience and exploration to unearth it and then develop it. She's a good writer, and she tells good stories. She keeps the book interesting. Angela Duckworth does. There was also much more to it, including parenting and coaching tips, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, and how to get the most out of practice, and how, based on research, people with more grit are happier in general. The New York Times bestselling book, this New York Times bestselling book, was a good read. The psychology books I've read before are usually very insightful, but far less entertaining. Angela Duckworth somehow pulled off combining the two. I recommend this book to anyone seeking to understand the fundamentals of achievement. And if you do want to read this book, check out all the links below. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.